A while back, I wrote a script that was far too long and far too nitpicky about the shortcomings that I felt were within Breath of the Wild's design. These criticisms extended to its combat, story, and overall design of its universally praised open world. I recorded the video, gathered the footage for it, and never finished it entirely. There was a part of me that knew I was being too harsh on the game itself, and also there was a part of me that knew that every criticism I had already had been stated before by much larger channels and much larger videos. Still, within that original script, there are glimmers of what I feel I actually wanted to say, which was, if Nintendo ever gave the open world Zelda formula another try, here's what I'd like to see added and fixed. Well, E3 2019 has just recently wrapped up, and we are now all left with a brand new trailer for a brand new Zelda, a direct sequel to Breath of the Wild. So what better time is there than now for me to bring up the discussion of what I feel could be done better within its sequel? A bit of preamble before I start with the video proper. It's worth noting that at the moment of writing this video, all that we Zelda fans have to draw from for this sequel is this initial trailer from E3. The trailer itself is interesting from a story perspective for the game and shows what seems to be the major hook of the conflict for the story, but not much more. The game is using the same Link and Zelda and the same engine as before, at least that's what it appears to be. We're seeing the same Hyrule from Breath of the Wild, but no actual gameplay from the sequel itself yet. Because of our limited info on the sequel's gameplay, I'm going to be taking all of my notes and requests from the idea that I'm expecting this game to run on a very similar, if not exact copy of the gameplay loop from the first Breath of the Wild. Explore a large open world, fight monsters in the overworld of small and large sizes alike, while also fighting the very elements of the world itself. Explore smaller mini-dungeons, which were shrines in the first game, yet to be determined if they'll be making a full return or will be replaced with by areas that are of a different name but similar composition. Eventually, you clear your way through some larger dungeon areas with the game's bosses waiting at the end of each area's specific dungeon, and all the while there are collectibles, sights to see, and side quests to complete alike on your journey through Hyrule. I'm going to assume that because you're watching this video, you've likely either already played the first Breath of the Wild or are familiar enough with the game as it is now. All these requests will be based on what I think will improve aspects of the original game's formula. Here's hoping some of these requests and points could possibly give you an idea on how the formula for open world Zelda could be improved and expanded. I don't realistically see all of these points getting implemented. In fact, I'm certain that there are a few that definitely won't. What's important is the discussion on what could be improved within the sequel to the most ambitious Zelda yet. Let's get started. Number 1. Master Mode, Trial of the Sword, and Hero's Path should be there from the get-go. This one should be a given. While the original Breath of the Wild all had these modes as part of a first bare-bones DLC expansion, I believe now that Nintendo has the framework and precedent of how a harder difficulty could work in their open world, they could grant us these modes from the get-go. Trial of the Sword provides some interesting combat arenas and scenarios that would have otherwise remained unseen aside from challenge runs within the open world, and Hero's Path is just a neat little addition to track how far your quest has taken you. All of these modes are well designed and would make great additions to the game from launch. Key statement being, from launch. Forking over the $20 for the expansion pass only to be fed these modes after a couple months as our only token of purchase until the next set of DLC was one of the worst parts of the original game. The DLC was not handled well, and this stuff could fix that problem by being in the game at launch to make way for some more substantial and interesting content within future expansions, as well as providing more gameplay variety and options at the beginning of the game from launch. Number 2. Consuming food in battle should not be risk-free. I love Breath of the Wild's cooking mechanic. It allows for effortless but flexible gathering of items and combining them into different dishes. As you gain more experience playing the game, you learn what the best ingredients are and what effects you want to create through the dishes that you make. Unfortunately, there's very little merit to planning out your dishes, at least if you're just trying to restore hearts. Feel free to pause combat entirely and stuff your face like it's Thanksgiving afternoon before unpausing back into the thick of battle. The fact that the game freezes time to essentially allow for unlimited health restoration in the pause menu means that the difficulty of the game gets severely diminished. If a player has put themselves into a situation where they need to restore hearts, the process of recovering those hearts should have some risk to it. If you're allowed to eat any food from your inventory, at least unpause the game with Link in an eating animation to prevent the player spamming every food item in their inventory. This new mechanic would mean players would feel more inclined to cook better dishes for health recovery, since it'll require an elongated animation where Link is in danger to consume their food item. Does this sound familiar, a la, let's say, an Estus flask animation out of Dark Souls 1, 2, or 3, a potion animation from Monster Hunter? A lot of games do this, and it's to prevent the player from spamming their healing. They'll want to eat the best dish to recover the most hearts and will prepare those dishes in advance. As it is now, the game doesn't really punish you for just spamming the eat button throughout the pause menu to eat every little ingredient in your inventory. Number 3. Make the main dungeons hidden throughout the world. In my opinion, this was the biggest missed opportunity from the original Breath of the Wild. I always felt the wonder of my exploration throughout Hyrule was dimmed because I always had a specific quest marker guiding me to my objective. Korok Seed, shrines, and other random highlights throughout the open world encouraged a bit of what I was looking for with scouring over the open world, but I don't feel it's the same. I'm going to call this request as fair game right now because as of the moment, we have not seen any more incarnations of what would be filling the role of the second game's dungeons. With the Divine Beasts out of the way, this would be the perfect time for Nintendo to play up the idea of dungeons being hidden throughout the overworld, just waiting to be found, just like the original Zelda on NES. I think hiding the dungeons would also play with the player's knowledge of the world map. If the sequel is taking place in the same Hyrule as before, this would give us players an interesting opportunity for us to guess which areas would be where the devs would be trying to hide a dungeon. I know for myself that the first place I'd check for a new dungeon would be running back to the Shrine of Resurrection and Temple of Time. In addition, I don't think it's too much to ask that the dungeons actually be varied this time. The previous game's dungeons all shared the same visual theme and similar music tracks. It got a little repetitive. It'd be a huge disappointment if Nintendo missed this opportunity for an awesome new game mechanic. Hide the dungeons. Make us explore. Please. Number 4. Have a special rechargeable weapon for every weapon type. So this might be something that only I want because I haven't seen too many people bring up this type of idea within discussions of Breath of the Wild, but I think it'd be a cool addition for Link to have a variety of magical weapons that recharge their durability like the Master Sword. I think it'd be solid if there was a weapon like this of every melee type. To prevent the player from spamming only these recharging weapons, I think Link should only be able to hold one in his inventory at a time until he swaps it out at a specific storage, inventory, or base or something. I think it'd give every player's Link a little nice piece of customization if their specific magic weapon was catered to their preferred weapon type. It'd also provide opportunities for either the main quest or side quest to provide us with more permanent upgrades via these weapons that don't break constantly. I mean, they do, but they'd just be able to recharge. Not much more to say on this one, just thought it'd be a cool addition. Number 5. More enemy variety. This doesn't really require much of an explanation. The first game had only 3 to 4 main types of enemies, and the rest of the combat encounters were either built up of smaller fodder that were meant to be treated like minor nuisances, or bigger enemies that were meant to instill panic as either special mini-bosses or rarer enemy types like Guardians or Lynels. Moblins, Bokoblins, and Lizalfos won't do on their own a second time around. We need more variety. Bonus points if they can differentiate themselves from the similar melee combat style that all enemy types utilized in the first game. Give us a variety of enemies and give us a variety of tactics. Let's see what you can do, Nintendo. Number 6. Make dungeon bosses unique instead of blights. Another obvious fix from the first game, I don't care whether Ganon or Ganondorf is the main antagonist again. Do not pull this bullshit of having every dungeon boss look the same again. It's visually lazy and limited the designs of the bosses, preventing any sense of anticipation for what you were going to fight when you already knew it was going to be another variant of purple textured eyeball goo monster. Get creative, get some variety, and give us some good boss fights. Number 7. Allow every armor to be upgradable. DLC armor was not upgradable, and that was stupid. Every armor set should be upgradable so that we can wear any costume with our version of Link while still being viable to use it for endgame combat encounters. I don't got anything more to say on this one, just it's stupid. Let us upgrade our armor. Number 8. More Sheikah Slate gadgets. The physics-based Sheikah Slate abilities are so damn cool that new powers are almost certainly going to be implemented. That's something I can say with a high amount of confidence for the development of this sequel. But let's throw some curveballs, shall we? To differentiate and, in my opinion, improve from the original, I think Link should acquire new Sheikah Slate gadgets through exploring the open world. There's so much potential for building Link up through rewards that amount to far more than extra heart containers, extra stamina, and extra storage. Give us a way to either find whole new Slate abilities or Slate upgrades throughout the world. Maybe have the powers acquired through a type of Spirit Orb transaction? Maybe keep it with the original upgrade system, but instead of upgrading in exchange for Guardian parts, we can exchange these items for brand new Slate abilities that drastically change the way we view and interact with the world around us. Before you say that there aren't enough possibilities for more physics-based abilities from the Slate for the world, let's not limit creativity here. Just because you or I couldn't think of a ton of things doesn't mean they don't exist. Here, I'll give a few freebies. Allow a small fire starting ability that creates a tiny spark. Maybe it can be upgraded to create a larger AoE fire on a much longer cooldown. Give us a power that creates a small gust similar to Revali's Gale. Give us a power that lets us pick an object or enemy to make small or make larger for some hilarious results. Maybe give us a gadget that allows us to affect the weather a bit. Those are just a few. Let's get creative with these upgrades and truly make them worthwhile to collect and utilize. Oh god, I'm gonna get shit for this one. Okay, so number 9 is my last request, and I think that the game could nerf the paraglider a bit. Now hear me out. I wanted to end the video on a more unorthodox request. As you could tell from how I worded the reasonings of previous requests, I'm a big fan of the game rewarding exploration. I want the traversal and core exploring of Hyrule to allow for a lot of variation, creativity, and surprises. I personally feel that nothing kills the sense of wonder and surprise of this world more than an overly consistent and reliable strategy. I think a game that is trying to emphasize freedom as much as the new Zeldas should emphasize giving Link a toolkit for gameplay that allows for an endless amount of creative combinations to solve a variety of issues. The original game tapped into this a bit, but I feel the concept could be taken further. I believe that what could truly improve Breath of the Wild is to take back that sense of unpredictability and force a player to get creative, think on their toes, and reward them for being outgoing explorers with more gameplay mechanics for them to utilize. For all of this to work, traversal also has to have that exact same sense of variety and surprise to it. The paraglider dims all surprise and wonder to exploring Hyrule, to me, just because of its ease and consistency in the original game. Flying is always a good way to get too good a view of your surroundings, and too good a way to get everywhere at a decent speed. When Link can virtually fly across Hyrule using high points as stepping stones, it really undermines the many other cool mechanics that the developers implemented to make traversal interesting. The joy of shield surfing, the strategy of managing stamina to climb a mountain, and the simple beauty of looking above at these landscapes from horseback. All of these traversal methods have their own unique utility and situations to them, but gliding is almost always the more effective option. I always feel like I'm disconnecting myself and only skimming over this beautiful landscape when I'm soaring over it, and I think the game would benefit by nerfing the paraglider a bit. It'll make players think a little bit more creatively about how they'll get from place to place, and make them feel more close to the world, I feel, as they plan out the routes around the world that surrounds them according to the terrain they're in. Also, hunting down hidden dungeons would be far too easy if Link could always just fly around Hyrule and skim the areas. I don't think the paraglider should be removed entirely, absolutely not. I think it's important for Link to be able to glide in short durations, and I absolutely think it should exist to nullify fall damage when possible as a quick reaction. I just think the stamina consumption should be tweaked to prevent large amounts of gliding until the endgame, where players would have already seen most of the world. It might be controversial, but I think it would improve the exploration and immersive connection with these beautifully built open worlds, and I wanted to state this request last so that we can end the video on a more interesting mechanic to think about tweaking. Or possibly not tweak at all! If you disagree entirely, feel free to let me know what you would personally like to see in the new Zelda in the comments. I'm extremely excited to see what Nintendo will do with this sequel, and will be waiting with crossed fingers to hopefully see some of these suggestions implemented. I do hope that you all have a good day, and I hope that you all too have games that you're also excited about from this previous E3. Once again, I hope you all have a good day, everybody. Rate the video accordingly to whether or not you liked it or didn't like it, and I'll see you guys next time.